Mercy, mercy, Lord have mercy. Why niggas hate me? Show me no mercy. Brother forsake me, woman them hurt me. Mercy, mercy, Lord have mercy.
Okay, walk like a champion, talk like a champion. You don't hear that semi blow. Pump, 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 pump. Put up on your set slow. You don't hear no engine. Put a body on it gun wide. Walk like a champion, talk like a champion. You don't hear that semi blow. Pump, 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 pump. Put up on your set slow. You don't hear no engine. Put a body on it gun wide.
Mercy, mercy, the wicked have no mercy. So I gotta stay with a blicker, niggas be thirsty. Quicker than the flick of a picture, niggas could murk me. Catch you with your dick in these bitches and do you dirty. But I'm God body, I put that shit on the jersey. No weapon formed against me shall hurt me. Go to war on your turf, I put you under the surface. Mac 10s, Mac 11s, call a nigga Bernie. Open up the chest of a nigga, the bitches burning. Living by the scripture that's written in this discernment. I see that window closing, can't be playing in the curtains. I ain't playing like the circus. I'm a man with a purpose. Can't be laying with the serpents. Keep the squares out your circle. You ain't standing on your word. What kind of man are you? X you out, cross you over. I had to shell guide you. Can't stop a nigga drive the beat. They can't guard you. Hell have no fury compared to what God do. I'm a whole gangster, my nigga, not partial. 38 special. This nigga think he's special. I go ahead depart you. I ain't finna argue. Walk like a champion, talk like a champion. You don't hear that semi blow. Run, pump, 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 pump. Pull up on your set slow. You don't hear no engine. Put a body on it gun wide. Walk like a champion, talk like a champion. You don't hear that semi blow. Run, pump, 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 pump. Pull up on your set slow. You don't hear no engine. Put a body on it gun wide. Look, nigga, all that shit you saying ain't felt. I don't take you as serious as you take yourself. Niggas steady playing, better play where it's safe. Never know who I'm locked in with around your way. I don't like no bad energy around my space. The label good green, nigga, what's good, you straight? Niggas talking crazy, that's a big mistake. Dreadlock driller, man, it's twist of fate. Had to spin that nigga around like 360 ways. You don't know how I get out, fully, I've been on edge. I can't let that slide, don't be that guy. Red Bull gets you, nah, little nigga, they lie. This desert eagle gives you wings once I let that bitch fly. This eagle live vision on this level of mine. Give you an evil eye vision, red beam on the 9. Even I've seen evil eyes still cry. Don't leave an eyewitness on the scene of the crime. Seeing is believing, you ain't seen nothing yet. Sweet scenes like the seasons or a scene on the set. You think it's sweet cause you breathe until you see what's next.
Okay, walk like a champion, talk like a champion. You don't hear that semi blow. Pump, 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 pump. Put up on your set slow. You don't hear no engine. Put a body on it gun wide. Walk like a champion, talk like a champion. You don't hear that semi blow. Pump, 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 pump. Put up on your set slow. You don't hear no engine. Put a body on it gun wide. Walk like a champion, talk like a champion. You don't hear that semi blow. Pump, 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 pump. Put up on your set slow. You don't hear no engine. Put a body on it gun wide.
Mercy, mercy, Lord have mercy.
You don't hear that semi blow.
Show me no mercy. Brother forsake me, woman them hurt me. Mercy, mercy, Lord have mercy.
What's good? What's good? We back. What's up? What's up? Shalom. What's happening? We Um, yeah, no, you see the title, you know. Um, yeah, God is waking up His people for redemption. A lot of us is going through what they call a spiritual awakening and all that cool stuff, right? You know, Rather it's leading you to the truth directly, or you still on your path or whatever, right? You know, but the spirit is out, and a lot of people is understanding the conventional way of religion and all that stuff is, not all what it cracked up to be. It's not, something that's missing, right? So a lot of people is leaving, these, you know, modern religions institutions, right? So, yeah, we're gonna get into it though. And of course, before we get started, giving all praises to the Most High God Yahweh, we do so in His only begotten Son Yahweh Shai, right? So we're gonna get right into it. Because although they try to do certain things and propagate certain things and try to, many different tactics to knock us off our square, to disrupt us and take us from who we are. But who are we? We the best ever, right? We, any situation we in, we always come out on top, no matter what the odds is. So, it's, we always would be able to find our way back, right? And that's what a lot of us is doing, right? So we're gonna get into it though. We're gonna do somewhat of a little deep dive, Deuteronomy 30, right? But first, let's start with let's go to Apocrypha. Let's go to the book of Baruch, right? Let's go to chapter 2 real quick. Let's go to chapter 2. And so yeah, it says this. It says, "And thou spake by the servant Moses, and in the day when thou did command him to write the law before the children of Israel, saying." So, again, so we understand that we are the people of God, right? The Black, Hispanic, and Native American people, right? And of course, we're scattered throughout the diaspora and going by other names that they may call us by, right? And so this is about us, right? And it says, "As thou spake by the servant Moses in the day when thou did command him to write the law before the children of Israel, saying." So, we all familiar with the story, right? Mount Sinai, commandments, right? And it says, if thou wilt not hear my voice, surely this great multitude shall turn into a small number among the nations. And that's what happened. We've been scattered through slavery, conquest, war, and other means, right, throughout these different corners. And now, in these different areas that we're at, we're called minorities, right? And even across America, we got, what we consider black cities or concentrated areas where our people is at. But when you look at it totality of the whole map, we're scattered throughout this thing. We're not like a blanket all throughout America, right? Scattered little pockets, right? And it says, "A great multitude shall be turned into a small number among the nations, where I scattered them," right? And that's what happened, And we know the history, how the slaughter and everything that took place, even on this land, right? What they did to our Native American brothers and sisters, right? And our Hispanic brothers and sisters, right? And then even taking us from the shores of Africa. And how many of us perished coming over this way, right? So, and it says, For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people." And of course, our people are very hard-headed. We have an attitude where nobody can tell us anything. We think we know everything. Or, if somebody do perceive to have something, some type of wisdom, we, act like that person is a know-it-all, and we still don't listen to them, right? And it's crazy because, I don't know, it's like, when I was a kid, it's like, I thought, we should listen to the smart person, the one that got the idea, right? But it's like nowadays, everybody is doing their own thing and think they can figure it out, right? And it's crazy though. It's like nobody. That's why the elders and the people of the community get very little respect, because the youngins is not going to them to seek wisdom. Then vice versa, the elders is not going to the youngins and giving them the knowledge as well. So it's all messed up. Then it says, and I should know that, boom, boom, boom. And it says, verse 30, it says, for I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, right? Very hard-headed people, very, pompous, and think we can just do it ourselves, right? Unless a white man is saying it. When they speak, then we be like, oh, okay, that got to be true. They said it's going to rain tomorrow, right? So, then it says, but in the land of their captivity, they should remember themselves. And that's what we're doing. We are remembering ourselves, right? We're, coming to this great awakening, right? Understanding who we are as a people. Understanding that the traditional way of understanding this book and what we have been taught is lies, right? And we're coming to that understanding. As we research and study and, and be taught, we're understanding these things, right? That's why when you look around the world and you see war and all this crazy stuff going on, natural disasters and stuff, that's God judging this place. Because as the prophecies say, as his people wake up, he's going to begin to visit this place and judge them for the things that they have done, right? That's how it works. It's like a seesaw, right? One go up, one go down, right? One go down, one go up. So as we are down, the other nations have the free reign to rule and do whatever they're doing. And then we're subjugated to them, like we currently are. And with them being in reign and ruling, we see the conditions of the world, right? That's why the Bible says, when the wicked is in rulership, the people mourn. That's why there's so much depression, stress, anguish, all this stuff going around the world, because it's not safe. It's war, everything, famine, people worrying about how they're going to eat, a lot of stuff. Because wicked people are in rulership, and they're stealing the wealth of the world from the poor. But then the Bible says when the righteous bear rule, the people rejoice. And that's us, the righteous, the Israelites. That's why we, as we're waking up and coming back to our culture, law, statutes, and commandments, keeping the faith, that's why it's going to be our job to rule this place in righteousness, because these people don't know what they're doing. Look around. They don't know what they're doing, right? The forest is dead, water is polluted, air unbreathable, right? Homeless everywhere, hungry countries everywhere. They don't know what they're doing, right? So that's why God is putting us in charge, right? That's why we got next, right? But we have to first wake up and separate ourselves from the society to do so, because he wants righteous people to rule this place, right? Not wicked people, because we see where we at right now, right? They're getting ready to push the button any day. So back over here, and it says, for I will give them a heart and ears to hear. So now we're getting to understand, and now we're starting to get that heart and ears to hear, right? Now we're starting to try to seek the truth, seek out the Lord. Seek what is our culture, our heritage, who we are as a people, right? And it says, it says, and for they shall praise me in the land of their captivity and think upon my name. And that's what we're doing now. We're, becoming, studious in this thing. We're understanding who we are and understanding how to properly serve God, and understanding to do so We have to keep his commandments in the faith. And like I said right here, and they shall praise me in the land of their captivity. And that's what we're starting to do. And that's why he's starting to visit this place and wake up the people. Then as we're waking up, like the prophecy say, he's going to start marking that 144,000, right? That's going to, be the governing body of the people of Israel, right? All that stuff happening. And we know the people's getting sealed because things is happening on the earth, right? World War III is getting ready, was basically happening, so we know the people of God is waking up and getting sealed because things are happening, right? So, and it says, where we at? Mark. Hey. And 17. So, Mark 8 and 17. We'll start there. And it says this, and it says, and when Jesus knew it, he said unto them, why reason ye, because ye have no bread? Perceive ye not, neither understand. And that's what's been going on for so long. Our people have not been able to perceive and understand, right, in this book. And now, as we're waking up and understanding who we are, and the Holy Spirit is working through us, how to tell us, it teaches all things, right? And it says, and perceive ye not, neither understand, and have your heart yet hardened, right? And that's what happened to a lot of our people. And unfortunately, although a lot of us is waking up, a few of us and a lot of us is not waking up, because it says, have ye your heart yet hardened, right? Because some people, although you can break it down to them like you're talking to a 3-year-old, they're still not gonna get it because it's not made for them to get it, because they're just wicked. And some people is just can't get right? And it says, having eyes and see not. And that's what they do. They have eyes but see not. Because some people it's a difference between being just ignorant, it's things that you don't know. Okay, cool. Then between being ignorant and willfully ignorant, meaning you don't know stuff, and over there is where you can get the stuff that you don't know, and you're like, whatever, I'm cool, right? I'm alright. That's how you become willingly ignorant, stupid on purpose, right? Because a lot of people feel once they know something, they understand the responsibility of knowing it. So rather take on that responsibility of knowing it, they rather not know it. They rather say, I'm cool. Just like when you at work and stuff, right? For those that go to work and they just like, I'm just gonna go to work, do what I need to do, and that's it, right? Then somebody come and try to teach you a new thing, I don't wanna, I just wanna, I'm cool with doing this, right? So it's like that. A lot of people have that attitude when it comes to wisdom and knowledge, right? They're just comfortable. And so it says, and return from their stick neck and from their wicked deeds, for they shall remember their way, the way of their fathers was sin before the Lord, right? And and that's what we're doing. We're understanding that the reason why we're in this predicament, because we are in a contractual agreement with the Most High God. People call it the covenant, right? And in that contract, there's word clauses in that. If you do X, Y, Z, then I'm going to do A, B, C. And then if you don't do X, Y, Z, then I'm not going to do A, B, C, right? Those are clauses, right? Just like most contracts have clauses. Athletes, they sign contracts all the time, like especially football players. They might sign a deal for 75 million, right? Everybody think he got money, but then it's only 20 million guaranteed, right? Or something like that. So you have to work for the other 50 million, 50 something million, right? So it's a clause. So then it's the same thing. So, but people, we confuse that. And then understanding that we're under contract. So we're going to start to understand that we didn't keep our end of the bargain, right? So then it says, I will bring them again into the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And, that's, who know what that is? That's the Israelites, right? And everybody, so there's no such thing as spiritual Israel, how they want to throw it out there, right? I just have to say that, right? Then it says, and they shall be, the fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they shall be lords of it, and I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished. So he will bringing us back into the land, right? He's going to increase us, give us prosperity, right? No longer be diminished. Nobody's no longer going to come and rob us and steal from us and misuse us and kidnap us and take us all across the world, right? Then it says, and I will make a everlasting covenant with them to be their God, right? That's what he said, right? And just like it says in Joel 2 and 27, right? Then it says, I will make an everlasting covenant to be their God, and they shall be my people, and I will no more drive my people out of Israel, out of the land that I have given them. So, like I said, we will no more go back into captivity, no more, slavery, no more oppression and all that stuff, right? Because this right here is the last, occupation of a foreign nation that we have to suffer under, right? And let's get this real quick. This is Lamentation 4 and 21. And it says, rejoice and be glad, O daughters of Edom, right? So this is the Edomites, right? These are the people that, took God's people into captivity, right? And still holding us to this day, right? To this day, like DeAndre Watt, to this day, right? Still holding us, right? Edom, biblical nationality. And it says, rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwell in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. So this cup that the Most High is talking about, this is a cup of judgment, right? And he's telling them that, you've been going around the world doing your little Edomite stuff, your caveman activities, right? All around the world. But that same hell and destruction you brought to all the nations, you're going to have to drink from that same cup. Because over here, they think everything is all peaches and cream. They think, we got an ocean over here, we got an ocean over there, we got land down there and land up there. They can't get us, right? But that's what he's telling them. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwell in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken. Oh, they're going to be so drunk when the Most High God get done with these people, right? You think they're going crazy right now, and losing their mind over, a so-called country that, they thought would take just we'll do it very quickly, folks. They don't have no Air Force over there, but, they're running out of, missiles and stuff, right? They got to get it together, right? The logistics is kind of not adding up for them right now, right? Those people over there with the little curly stuff that like to put the little cup coasters on top of their heads, they over there going crazy, right? Because They made it seem like they took out their, defense systems, but they got stuff underground, right? These people is like the mole people, right? They got tunnels and they stuff underground that they got, right? That they can't get to, right? So it says, "Thou shalt be drunken." They're gonna be drunken with the wrath of the Most High God as He's judging this place, right? And it says, and shall make thyself naked. And that's what's happening. These people are becoming exposed, because that's what it means to be made naked, right? It's not talking about literally being made naked. It's talking about people is going to start looking at these people and seeing them for who they are. And if you look on social media and different various independent news networks, you see they like, hey, well, dang, wait, hold on, they're working with them and they're listening to them, and I mean, what's going on there? Oh, they're responsible for that. Oh my God. Oh, geez, he worked for them, and they tied to that government. Oh man, they're figuring their stuff out, right? And I love it, right? I love looking at Tucker Carlson, racist by the way. Don't get it twisted, right? Although he try to talk real nice and act like he's a evangelical Christian, but I love to hear them bicker amongst themselves, right? Satan casting out Satan, right? This, sometimes you got to tune in and watch to see where we at in this thing. You got to look at it and be like, yeah, see if they still fighting. Like, hey, y'all still fighting in there? All right, cool, right? Got to check every now and then, make sure they still. Then every now and then you gotta ruffle, you gotta throw in a little something, throw a little gasoline on there. Make sure the fight still goes, right? Gotta instigate. No, but anyway, so it says and shall be naked, and that's what happened. So a lot of countries are exposing them, understanding that these people are the sons of perdition, like the Bible tells you. These people are the devil that the Bible speaks of, right? And it's not a metaphorical. We can look at history and see how these people get down, right? If that ain't the devil, then I don't know who is, right? And then it says, the punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. Talking to us, right? So the things that we've been going through, these past few centuries and all that stuff, dealing with the occupation of these people, right? The Most High God is telling us, the punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee into captivity, like we just read over here. He will no more carry us into captivity, right? So these people that we're dealing with is the last time we're going to have to be subjugated to these people before we back and ruling this thing like how it's supposed to be, right? And so it says, the punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. I will no more carry thee into captivity. He will visit thy iniquity, O daughter of Edom, and he will discover thy sins. And that's what's happening. Because again, the cup is going to get passed to them. Their nakedness is going to be exposed. And we're starting to look at the wickedness and seeing all the things that they're tied into, from the Epstein stuff to the every other stuff that they love to do, right? And we just looking back like, wow. And it's amazing to us and shocking, because we are naturally good-hearted people. And to see the stuff that these people are into, man, it's crazy. It's mind-blowing that these people do. But knowing that these people is the devil that the Bible speaks of, we can understand. We can be like, yeah, I can see that, right? Yeah, I get it. Man, yeah, right. So back over here, and it says, boom, boom, boom. It says, I will make a everlasting covenant with them to be their God, and they shall be my people, and I will no more drive out my people of Israel out of the land that I have given them. Right? Real quick, Hebrews, real quick. Hebrews 8:8 real fast. Got Hebrews, boom. And it says, so it says, for finding fault with them. Because again, the Israelites, we broke the covenant because we were in a contractual agreement with them, and we didn't hold up our end of the bargain. So we end up breaking our end of the bargain. So it says, for finding fault with them, right? So we know the history. We can read this book and know that the Israelites at various points stopped keeping the laws of God to follow the other surrounding nations that was around them, right? Then it says, for finding fault with them, behold, the days come, said the Lord, I will make a new covenant. So this is the New Testament talking about the new covenant. I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, right? So again, like it says over here, I will make an everlasting covenant with them to be their God, right? So this is talking about the people of Israel. This is talking about the Black, Hispanic, and Native American people, right? So, and there's no room for anybody else because, I mean, we haven't read anything about the other 7 billion. I mean, but it do say, behold, the days come, said the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers, right? Because it said, not according to the covenant I made with their fathers. Because, like it says over here, and I will bring them into the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? So, but he said, but what did he say? Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day I took them by the hand and led them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant. So because we didn't keep the covenant that he gave to our fathers, right? He says, I regard them not, said the Lord. So then we were cast out into all these other places, into, where we at right now, right? And again, going back to understanding how God operates, because he demands obedience, right, for his people, right? And if we don't obey him, we get subjugated to other nations, war, every type of stuff happens, right? So now keep that in mind real quick, right? So now we have some people over there that is secular in nation, don't believe in God, right? But they're over there and they do like a whole bunch of stuff over there that has nothing to do with this, and they're over there, right? So now if they were who they say they were, they would be right over here with us in the ghettos, right? But they're not, So what did that mean? I don't know. What did that mean? But it says, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day I took them by the hand and led them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant. I regard them not, said the Lord, for this is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, said the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be unto them a God, and they shall be unto me a people, right? So that's what's going on, right? So over here, Baruch chapter 3, and it says, O Lord, O Lord, Almighty God of Israel, the soul in anguish and in troubled spirit cry unto thee, right? And that's what's been going on for the last 500 years. We've been crying unto thee because of the anguish and the atrocities that our people have been suffering since the times that we've been over here, right? And so that's what's been going on. It says, Hear, O Lord, and have mercy, for thou art merciful, and have pity upon us, because we have sinned before thee, right? And so as we're coming into the understanding and recognizing our sin, Like it tells us, in the land of their captivity, they shall remember themselves. So we understanding, our portion of the contract, of the covenant, right? Because, we just think, yeah, okay, Jesus died and, new covenant, but we have to, it's something we have to do. We have to seek, how the Bible says, seek the kingdom. So you have to come back to the understanding first, right? To even qualify, right? So then it says, boom, 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 it says, oh, let me get this first. Get Ezra 9 and 7. And it says, since the days of our fathers we have been a great trespass unto this day. And that's what's going on, because again, if you understand the history, we often, periodically broke our end of the covenant, right? And it says, since the days of our fathers we have been in a great trespass, right? And it says, been in a great trespass unto this day, and our iniquities, for our iniquities have our kings and our priests have been delivered to the hands of kings of the lands. And that's what happened. They took our kings, our noble people, and took them into slavery, made them bow down in servitude, right? That's what they did to our mighty men and women of our nation, right? That's what they did. So it says, since the day of our fathers we have been in great trespass unto the day, and our iniquities, for our iniquities, our kings and our priests have been delivered into the hand of the kings of the lands. And that's what happened. They took our people. Then it says, to the sword, to captivity, and to a spoil, and to confusion of face as this day. And that's what's going on. They unalived us at astronomical numbers, right? They killed all of our leadership, right? They did all types of stuff, took us into slavery, robbed us, took all of our gold and artifacts and all that stuff, right? And left us with confusion of face, meaning with no wisdom, no knowledge. We all here calling ourselves African American and all types of bywords and other little, oxymoron terminologies that we throw out there, right? And there's no knowledge, don't know who he is, right? Walking around with European names, right? Thinking it's cool, right? Don't know, right? That's what's going on. Lamentation. Let's go back to Lamentation real quick. Let's go to Lamentation 5 and 7. Lamentation 5 and 7 says, our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. Right? And that's what's going on, because the sins of our fathers and their adultery is the reason why we're born here in America under this wicked rulership, right? Because the sins of our fathers. And people will be under the understanding like, well, God don't judge you, punish the for the sins of the father. That's talking about, this is what it's talking about. It's talking about if I go steal something from somebody, my son can't be like, well, I know my dad stole it. Instead of putting him in jail, put me in jail. That's what it's talking about, right? But in context, when you go to the even Exodus 20, right? When the law is first given, and he said he would visit the iniquity to the third and fourth generation, right? How that works is because, say like you are a wicked person or someone that doesn't, follow God, then you have children. Then your children is following you because you're the head of the household. So then they end up, perpetuating that same activity, right? So then that lifestyle end up getting, pushed down all the way generation to generation. We have a word called generational curse, right? You know, you go to certain projects and ghettos throughout this place, and a lot of people been there since their great grandma. Well, my grandma stayed here. My grandma stayed on that block, or my grandma stayed there. Blah blah blah. Right? And they're the new generation living in that same predicament. Right? So if we can understand that, then we can understand why our dear brother Jeremiah, I believe it's Jeremiah that wrote Lamentation, is saying this: our fathers have sinned and are not, or I think it could be our dear brother Baruch. I'm not sure, but I know it says our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. Right? So, like I said, so that's why it's important for us to break that generational curse that our people are collectively going through as a people by coming back to our culture, customs, faith, religion, whatever you want to call it, and separate from, you know, these people and their spirituality and their system, right? And come back to what God called us to do. And it says, our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. And because of that, right, it's telling us this: servants have ruled over us, and that's where we at. Servants is ruling over God's people, right? Because God designed us to rule over them, right? You don't believe it? Read Deuteronomy 28. That's the whole purpose. He designed. Hold on, real quick, Salakia. Let me fix this real quick. So he designed it that way, right? And so it says, servants have ruled over us. There is none that do deliver us out of their hand, right? There's nobody that can deliver us out of their hands. Every one of our civil rights leaders and activists tried, but we're still here talking about no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, right? Still over here talking like that, right? That's because the glory is going to be given to a black man by the name of the Mashiach Yahweh Shai when he come back with the millions and millions of angels to free his people, right? So that's who the glory is going to be given to take his people out of this predicament, right? So that's why everybody try and fail, because, like I said, the Most High is going to send His Son to rectify the situation. So back over here, and it says, and it says, boom, boom, boom. It says, for thou endures forever, and we perish utterly. And that's what happened, because we break the law, we perish. That's why, we die at a young age. We have a lot of health problems and sickness that goes on in our community because we don't do what he says that we should do. We think that we know better than God, right? We think we know better than a man that designed a human body, put the human consciousness together and all that stuff. We think he probably don't know it all, right? When a man created the concept of thinking, right? That's what he did, right? But, I guess he don't know everything, so maybe we shouldn't listen to him, right? Then it says, for thou endures forever, because the Most High endured forever, His word endured forever, and we perish utterly. We perish because for a lack of knowledge and not keeping the wisdom and knowledge that He given us, right? Jeremiah 14 and 20 says this: we acknowledge the Lord, we acknowledge, O Lord, our wickedness. And that's what we should do as a people. Acknowledge our wickedness. Acknowledge that we've been following the false way, right? And brainwashed with this Christianity stuff. And now we're entering to the truth, as we can see, because we see prophecy happening. We see our people waking up. And it says, we acknowledge, O Lord, our wickedness and the iniquity of our fathers, for we have sinned against thee. So do not abhor us for thy name's sake. Do not disgrace the throne of thy glory. Remember, break not thy covenant with us. right? And that's what we need to be praying to God, that He break not His covenant with us. We need to get these wicked bastards off our back. These wicked nations that's ruling over us, right? He's the only one that can do it. You think these people is going to stop doing what they're doing, right? You think they're going to do that? Probably not, right? Probably not. I mean, this place is not, in a move for change. They promote a progressive way of life, but nah, they ain't changing nothing, right? So, back over here. Let's get First Ezra real quick. First Ezra 8. First Ezra 8. First Ezra 8 and boom, boom, boom. 76. Yeah, First Ezra 8 and 76. Okay, and it says, forever since the time of our fathers, we have been and are in great sin until even until this day, right? And that's what we got to realize, because again, following these traditions and believing that we don't have to keep the law, that the laws of God is done away with, it caused us to be in great sin even unto this day. And for our sins and our fathers, we with our brethren and our kings and our priests were given up unto the kings of the earth. And that's what happened. So we were taken captive by the kings of the earth, by these different nations. And it says, unto the sword and unto captivity, for a prey with shame unto this day. And that's how they treat us, with shame, right? They talk bad about us, act like we're, just the worst of the worst, right? And, so that's what's going on, right? Back over here. And it says, O Lord Almighty, thou God of Israel, hear now the prayers of the dead Israelites and their children which have sinned before thee, and not hearken unto the voice of their God, for which caused these plagues to cleave unto us. Then it says, remember, because again, to not get all super off track, but the prophecy of us going into captivity was prophesied way back in, I believe, I think it was Amos prophesied about us coming over here way before, right? And again, I think you can shoot if you really want to go back to Moses, but Amos, I believe was, the one that first, kind of laid it out there. Hey, like, yo, you better chill, because this was going to happen. And then, boom, it happened. So, then it says, remember not the iniquities of our fathers, but think upon thy power and thy name now at this time. For thou art the Lord our God, and thee, O Lord, will we praise. For this cause thou hast put fear in our hearts to attend that we should call upon thy name, and the praise in our captivity. So that's what's going on. Now we're starting to call upon the Most High God, right, to get us out of this place. We're looking at current events and seeing what's going on, and we like, Lord, just get us up out of here, right? We understanding the times, right? And we're coming back to the understanding and as repentant Israelites, right? And it says, behold, we are yet this day in our, it says, says, for we had caught in the mind of our iniquities of our forefathers that have sinned before thee. Right? Because again, we're remembering this stuff, we're reading this book, and we're like, hey, this book remind me of us, of our people, the stuff that we've been through. And it says, behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us, because we're scattered. Those people that claim to be, but they wasn't scattered nowhere. They willfully went everywhere they wanted to go, right? Then it says, boom, boom, boom. Then it says, behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse. And that's what's going on. He has scattered us for a reproach and a curse, for correction, and to, punish us. Right? Like a good parent does. A parent will put their child on punishment, discipline them for a certain amount of time. Although you're going through that punishment, you're probably looking at your parent like, okay, why? Can you please stop? All right, okay, that's enough. I learned my lesson. All right, stop, please. All right, stop. Right? So, that's why it's important not to piss God off. Because look what we've been going through for the last 500 years. That ain't cool. Right? So, let's not make him mad. Right? And then it says, behold, we're yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and subject to payments. So now we're subject to payments. That's why every time you get your paycheck, you got to give it right back to the person that just gave it to you, right? You never get a chance to really enjoy your money, right? Because you always got to pay this bill, pay for this, pay for that. You need to fix this. You need to get this done for the car and all that stuff. Money goes, right? Then depending on what type of job you got, you might just have enough money for the weekend. You get your paycheck Friday and you broke Monday. Because it says, behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, like DeAndre Wilder, to this day, right? You have to go back there, right? Then it says, behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payments. That's what's going on. We're subject to payments. No representation without taxation. They taking our money, right? They taxing us, right? The rich is getting rich, the poor is getting poor, right? Bills everywhere, right? Every month, right? And not just like this. Shoot, you get pulled over, they write you a ticket, right? You got to pay a ticket, right? And those tickets that you have to write, they're owned by private companies. They're not even going to the state. They're not even going to the state treasurer. They're going to some guy that decided to fund a bill, and now he gets, the commission off that ticket, right? It's crazy. But it tells us to be subject to payment according to all the iniquity of our fathers, which departed from the Lord our God. And that's what happened because we departed from the Lord our God. That's what's going on, right? Because it tells us this over here real quick. It says, Deuteronomy 28:47, because thou serve not the Lord thy God with joyfulness. Because that's what happened when God gave us these laws and told us, hey, you're going to be the greatest people on the planet. Coldest of the coldest. Kings and queens, priests, warriors. We're like, yeah, all right, that's cool. But, that's, what the Babylonians over there doing. What the Egyptians over there doing, right? Because it says, because thou serve not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and gladness of heart, for abundance of all things, because he would have gave us everything we wanted, if we had just kept our end of the bargain. But it says, therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies. And that's what's going on. Now we're serving our enemies. Because like it told us over here, it says, behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for a reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payment. So now we got to serve our enemies and be subject to payment, right? According to all the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from the Lord our God, right? Because thou serve not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and gladfulness of heart and abundance of all things. Therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies, which the Lord thy God shall send against thee in hunger. So anytime we want to go to something to eat, we go to their grocery stores, right? Their farmer markets, their restaurants, because we don't own any grocery chains like that. We don't own any farms and stuff to make produce and supply, and feed people, right? So we have to go to our enemies, right? And it says, and in thirst and in nakedness and want of all things. So anything we want, if we want to get certified for anything, we have to go to their institution that they set up to learn it, right? Anything, right? We want, it says, in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron on your neck. And that's what they did. They put a yoke of iron, shackles. They chained us, right? And it says, on your upon your neck, until he has destroyed thee. So, just like if you're a dog owner, you put a leash on your dog. You got a small, young puppy dog. You're training it. You walk it with the leash. If you train it good enough, after a while, you can take the leash off. And the dog's going to stay right there with you. It's going to walk with you. It's not going to run off, right? It's not going to get, distracted by, anything and just dart off anywhere, right? It's going to be pretty much trained, right? And that's what we are, pretty much trained. They have released us in their backyard to roam. And we call it freedom, right? But they put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. That's what's going on. We are mentally destroyed, spiritually destroyed, because of this system that they put in place, right? And it says, hear, O Israel, the commandments of life. Give ear to understanding. Give ear to understand wisdom. How happened it, Israel, that thou art in how happened it, Israel, that thou art in enemy's land? We are in the enemy's land, moving behind enemy lines, knocking behind enemy's gates. That's where we at right now. But some of us will call it home, right? This is a prison, right? Then it says, how happened it, Israel, that thou art in enemy's land, that thou art waxed old in strange country? We're getting old and stressed out and run down in this place, right? Because of the stress and the ills of this place, that goes on here, right? A lot of our people have a low life expectancy, right? Dying at in the age of in the 50s and the 60s and stuff like that, right? It's crazy, right? The quality of life is bad for the people over here, right? And it says that thou art waxed old in a strange country. That's what's going on. We waxing old over here. We getting more and more worrisome as a people, right? Because of the system, because of the conditions that we see, we turn on TikTok from time to time. We look at YouTube or whatever, World Star and all that stuff from time to time. We see some of the unruly things that our people be getting into, right? Because, this society that we live in and how it, coaches and coerces us into these things. And our people are just like sheep, like the Bible tells us. It's like sheep. We just follow because it's cool, right? Wax old in a strange country, that thou art defiled with the dead, right? And that's what's going on. We are being defiled with the dead, the spiritual dead. So back over here. And it's saying, let's go Deuteronomy 30, right? So now we understand that the condition of our people, because our sins, and now we're remembering and waking up, we're being brought, spiritually back into the understanding, and the Most High God is moving. He's going to save his people. Deuteronomy 30 and 1. And it shall come to pass, all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse which I have set before thee, thou shalt call them to mind among the nations. That's what we're doing. We're calling them to mind, right? Then it says, "Rather the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day. Thy this day thou and thy children with all thy heart, which with all thy soul," right? And so that's what the Most High God require us to get into this covenant, for He can bring us back, right? So it's not about just believing on sweet Jesus, just believe on sweet Jesus. That's cool. You're supposed to believe on Jesus. But also you have to do the works too, because just like sweet little Jesus brother said, James, what did James say? Faith without works is dead. You show me your faith, I'll show you my works. James said that. That's Christ's little brother, right? They grew up in the same household together, right? Sat across the dinner table, right? Probably shared the same bed. So surely he might know what he's talking about, right? So Deuteronomy, what I want, what did I say? All right, Deuteronomy 11 and 18. There we go. It says, Therefore shall ye lay up these words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as for forelets between your eyes. So these laws, these commandments that God is telling us, He's telling us to put it in your mind, because the forelets of your eyes is right up in here, right in between your head, and that's your brain. So put it in your mind, right? It says, Therefore shall ye lay up my words in your heart, right? Because just like Christ said, man should live by every word that proceed out of the mouth of God. And it says, lay up my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that thou mayest be foreless between your eyes. So it's not like how those people do it over there. I'm trying to, contain myself. But it's not like how those people over there, where you see them with the little black little box tied to their little wrist, or they got a little Lego cube on their forehead, right? And that's why they shouldn't be having this book, right? Because you're not supposed to put Lego cubes on your forehead. That's not what God is telling you to do, right? Don't put black Lego cubes on your forehead or on your wrist. It's talking about putting it in your mind, right? Memorizing it, putting it in there, right? Digesting it, internalizing it, right? Not putting Lego cubes on your head, right? So it says, bind them for a sign upon your hand, and that they may be foreless between your eyes. No Lego cubes. And ye shall teach them to your children, speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. So we teach these things to our kids. We don't be like, well, you gotta let them find their own way, or don't force that on the kids. Don't force that on the kids. God says teach it to them. We have to teach it to them. That's how we get up out of this place, right? It's not just enough for you to know, right? We have to teach everybody, even the little childrens. Teach the childrens, right? Didn't Whitney Houston tell you? Whitney Houston told us that the children are our future. We got to teach them and guide them and let them lead the way. Didn't she tell us that? Right. So we got to do these things. So back over here to 30. Deuteronomy 30. And it says, and that then the Lord thy God will return thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all nations, rather the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. Because that's where we're at. We're scattered through all nations, through slavery, through the transatlantic slave trade, the Arab slave trade, right? And other means, right? So, and He's going to bring His people back on that great day. Isaiah 14 real quick. And it says, Isaiah 14:1, for I will have mercy on Jacob, and yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. That's what we just read, right? I believe it. Yeah, that's what it says. It says, then the Lord will return thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and return and gather them from all nations, rather the Lord thy God has scattered them, right? Yeah, that's what it said. Then it says, and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them. So the strangers, which would be the non-Israelites, right? The Gentile nations, they're going to be there, right? Because everybody, I know some of you coon like people, like, well, okay, what about Master? And Master coming too? I mean, what about the other people? What about them? What's that? I mean, yeah, they're gonna be there. And it say, and the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. They're gonna be there, and they're gonna be cleaving to us, because they're gonna need us in that day, just like how we need them today. We was hoping a couple of months ago that they do something with this shutdown, so the food stamps and the other little government programs don't get shut and cut and all that stuff. We was hoping and praying, right? We was hoping that that whatever this number 47 do in office don't too much affect the poor people, right? Because we cleaving to them, we depending on them and what they do, right? That's why we every 4 years go and cast a vote, thinking that they're gonna fix our situation, because we cleave to them. But in that day, it says, the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. So they're going to need us. They're going to be cleaving to us. They're going to want what we got, right? And it says, and the people should take them, and we're going to take them, just like they took us. They took us from Africa, right? They took us from the Americas and brought us to Spain and Europe and elsewhere, right? They took us from the Caribbean, and they did a whole little scramble thing. They mixed us all around, right? They did what's that 3-car motley? They did that, right? They took us everywhere, right? That's why you got a big Puerto Rican population in the Philippines. What's up with that, right? That's why one of the biggest Mexican Hispanic diasporas outside of the United States is over there in I think it's Germany. Why is that? Right? They took us all everywhere, right? Native Americans over there in Spain and Portugal and all that stuff. Biggest diaspora outside of America. Why is that? They took us everywhere. 3-car motley, mixed us all around, right? Then it says, and the people should take them. So we're going to take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them. So just like they possessed us, and say, hey, you're going to Master Johnson's plantation. You're going over there to Davison and Jackson, and they possessed us, right? I'm like, what's your name, boy? Your name is call you Parker. I gave you a real Edomite's name. I'm gonna call you Parker, right? Call you Dylan, right? Now, we don't say Jamal over here. We say Dylan, right? So they didn't change everything, right? So we're going to do that. And they shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and for handmaids. The same way they did to us, for servants and for handmaids. And it shall take them captives who captives they were. So that's called a role reversal, right? And they shall take them captives who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Wow, that's what's happening, right? Because that's called justice, and the Most High God is all about justice. And everybody talking about no justice, no peace. It will be justice and it will be peace in that day. Because it says this in Revelation 13:10. Start at 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. So if you can understand, everybody got ears. Even if you're deaf, you got ears. So it's talking about your understanding. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. So if a nation of people take another nation and bring them into captivity, they will go into captivity. And it says, he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. So if they unjustly murder the innocent of that nation, they have to pay a penalty for that. Right? Then it says, here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So the saints of the Most High God, the Israelites, is patiently waiting for a track to explode on. You can stun and you won't, and your west will get rolled on. Right? We patiently waiting for this. Right? Because it says, he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Right? Because that's what we're patiently waiting. Because the Most High God promised restitution for his people. Right? He promised that get back. Right? Because he is a God of justice. Whether you like it, believe it, understand it or not. Right? He would not let this go on and what happened and took place without any penalties or any type of... Nah, it don't work like that. Or else he wouldn't be who he say he is. Right? Psalms, real quick. Let's get Psalms 149 and 5. And it says this. Start at 4. For the Lord take pleasure in his people. Right? He loves his people. He will beautify the meek with salvation. He's going to beautify the meek with salvation because he's going to protect his people. Let the saints be joyful in glory. Let them sing out loud on their beds. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to be praising, singing, giving that good old war cry. That roo-rah, right? Good old war cry. Kwam Yasharala, right? That's what we're going to be doing. Let the high priest of God be in their mouth, and the two-edged sword in their hand, right? To execute vengeance upon the heathen and the punishment upon the people, to bind their kings with chains and their noblemen with feather of iron, right? Because it told us. And they should take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel should possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they should take them captives who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Because it says, let the high priest of God be in their mouths, and the two-edged sword in their hand, to execute vengeance upon the heathen, and punishment upon the people, to bind their kings with chains, like they did to ours. Like we read earlier, how they took our kings and their noblemen and with feathers of iron, to execute upon them the judgment that is written. This honor have all his saints. Praise ye the Lord. That's why we're patiently waiting, because God is going to give that honor to his saints, right? Back over here, Deuteronomy 30. And it say, let's get 26 real quick. Deuteronomy 26 and 16. And it says this day the Lord thy God has commanded thee to do these statutes and judgments. Thou therefore keep and do them with all thy heart. Right? So that's what God command us to do with all of our heart. That's why it's important to teach our kids. Then it says, and with all thy soul, that thou hast vouched the Lord this day to be thy God. So we had vouched. We said, look, he's gonna be our God, right? So as we're signing this contract, when you're sitting in the office and you're getting that contract and you're signing that contract, like, yeah, I agree, yeah, check that box if you check that box, and we like, yeah, cool, yep, yep. So it says, thou hast vouched the Lord this day to be thy God, and walk in his ways, and to keep his statutes and his judgments, keep his commandments and his judgments, and to hearken unto his voice. That's what we said we was going to do. We said these things, right? So then it says, and the Lord hath vouched, and the Lord has vouched. So God vouched. So God put it on He said, all right, yeah, I'm gonna be that. He said, so the Lord has vouched this day to be his this day to be his peculiar people. So God say, all right, I'm gonna be your God, and y'all gonna make y'all my peculiar people, right? We're gonna be very special. That's why we're so cold at everything we do, right? Even in our lower state, we're still great, right? Best singers, best actors, best cooks, best scientists, best everything. I mean, shit, I'm talking to you right now because of a black person, right? That's how cold we are, right? We do things, right? And so, just imagine if we're doing our contractual agreements, how great we'll be, right? So, peculiar people, have promised thee that thou should keep his commandments, right? And that's what he promised to be us to be a peculiar people if we keep his commandments, because it tells us this, Deuteronomy 7:6, for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. We are holy, meaning separate, right? We're different. We're not like them, and they're not like us, right? The Lord thy God has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, like we just read. He gonna make us a peculiar people, right? We're very peculiar. They look at us and they be so amazed, like, how's his hair like that? They want to touch your hair, right? Because you're so peculiar. Like, whoa, how's that woman raising all those kids by herself and they're such well behaved and all that stuff. You're very peculiar to them, right? They like to, they just like to watch. It's like National Geographic for them. They just sit and watch us struggle and see how we just bounce out of it. They be like, wow, I knew he was gonna make it. Oh God, wow, how did he do it? Right? Because for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So God created us to be above all people that are upon the face of the earth. That's why we so cold at everything we do, right? We can't help it. You know what I'm saying? We just cold. Everything we do is this swag. We always just have to put swag and make everything cool, right? I jokingly say how black people, we even make telling the truth sound cool, right? By saying no cap, or like, nah, no cap, or for real, or keep it 100. We got all these various ways to be truthful, but we make it sound cool in the slang that we use, because we're special, right? So back over here, and it says, if any of thy be driven out into the uttermost parts of heaven, from hence will the Lord thy God gather thee. From hence will the Lord thy God gather thee. From hence will he fetch thee. So even if we're scattered to any remote part of this world, we out some little far off island in the Pacific somewhere, or the South Asian Sea somewhere, right? Where we haven't had contact with people in forever, right? We just, whatever, right? And he's going to even grab us from those places and bring us, right? He's not going to let none of us, be left where we at, right? He's going to come get us, right? And for those people that is scattered into these remote islands and stuff, a lot of them have not heard about the, Most High God and Yahweh and all that stuff. They're still, thinking about some of these, what they call remote islands and all that stuff. Some of these people, they're still into their little, whatever they might be into, their little pagan stuff. Probably worshiping nature, a volcano, or whatever, right? Whatever they done, concocted over the centuries since they've been on these islands. But it tells us this in Isaiah 66 and 19. It says, "For I will send a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them into the nations." So what this talking about is, so as World War III is happening, and of course, once Christ is prophesied to return in the middle or towards the end of World War III, as they're getting ready to push that button, right? So then, as he's gathering his people, then those of us that make it out of this place before it goes kabooey, he's going to take those to these different islands and other nations, scattered out nations, to gather those Israelites, prophesize to them, teach them, and hopefully a lot of them, convert and leave their little island tradition, whatever they got going on over there, and come on back, come on to the mothership, come on back, come on home, right? And take them back, right? Because it says, "I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape unto them into the nations." So it's going to take the righteous of us that escape out of this land, and he's going to use them to go and teach in these different prospective places where our other brothers and sisters are scattered to, that have not yet had a chance to hear, what we call the gospel. So it says, "To Tarshish, to Pud, to Lud, that draw the bow, and to Tubal and Javan, to the isles far off." So all these little far off little islands and nations that's what they would probably call primitive or undeveloped, probably still using the bow and arrow, right? You see stuff on these what they got over there. It's right off by India. There's I forgot the name of the tribe, but some people that haven't had no human contact like that, then and they just out there living life, and they not saying that those are our people, but I'm just saying that, for using that as an example, that we're scattered throughout this place, and a lot of us have not had the opportunity to hear the gospel, and this was going to happen. It says, "To Tarshish, to Pud, to Lud, that draw the bow, and to Tubal and to Javan, to the isles far off, that have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles." So we're going to go and teach amongst our people in these different islands, and bring them back to the land, right? And again, this word Gentile, so don't go, everybody be tripping on the word Gentile. That's why I usually like to say, non-Israelites, instead of the word Gentile, because the word Gentile is actually just a generic word that just means nation. But I know colloquially how people think when they see the word Gentile, they automatically just associate it with non-Israelites. But the word Gentile, just in its generic form, just means nation. So Israelites is a Gentile of people, right? You can say that. We are a Gentile of people. And that would just be in English, a nation of people, right? So, and it says, "And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord out of all nations upon the horses and chariots and lanterns and upon mules and upon swift beasts." So, it's talking about all the various different ways that the Most High God is going to grab his people and scoop us up and bring us back to the land, right? Not to get all super deep, some of them, some people may call it UAPs, right? When I grew up, they call them UFOs, right? The chariots of God, right, is what the Bible calls it. And he's going to use these different vehicles that the angels, manipulate to go gather his people, right? And bring them back to the land. And it says, "To my holy mountain Jerusalem, said Yahweh, as children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel unto the house of the Lord." So, we're going to bring our fellow Israelites, brothers and sisters that have been scattered throughout the world as an offering to the Most High God. Like, yo, we went and grabbed our people, saying? We ready to come back into this covenant thing, right? So back over here, Deuteronomy 30. And it saying. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers have possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. Right? So he's going to, increase us, multiply us, make us prosper and prosperous in the land, once we get back there. And the Lord thy God will bring thee. Okay, then then it says, verse 6, and it says, and the Lord will circumcise thy heart and the heart of thy seed, and the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Right? So he's going to circumcise the heart of his people, right? That they may live. And we know that sounds familiar because the first time we hear about the new covenant, it tells us this. It says, behold, the days come, said the Lord, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand and bring them out of the land of Israel, but which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, said the Lord. But it shall be a covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, said the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts and write them in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. Right? So again, back over here it says, and the Lord God will circumcise thy heart and thy seed to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Right? Because that's the new covenant coming back into the fold. And it says, and the Lord thy God will put these curses upon thy enemies. So that's what's coming. So as we waking up, understanding who we are as a people, when we turn on the news and see all this havoc and destruction and turmoil going around the world, that is God judging the world for what they have done to his people. Because it tells us, and the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thy enemies and upon them that hate thee, which persecute thee. So all these people, all these nations that came against us throughout the eons of time, he's beginning to judge these nations. That's why they're going through what they're going through. That's why different nations have civil unrest, right? That's why this place is about to go through what they're going to go through. He's saving the best for last, right? And that's why this place is about to go through what they're going through. Because it says, put all these curses upon thy enemies and upon them that hate thee. Because these people hate us. So he's going to repay all these nations and these people for what they have done to us. Put all these curses on all the nations and them that hate us, which persecute thee, and thou shalt return and obey, the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. Right? And that's what's going on. So as we return and do the commandments he commanded us today, we're going to see more judgment getting passed on this earth, more stuff happening over there in the Middle East, more stuff escalating, because he's getting ready to send his son back to put belt to ass to all these dango nations, right? Especially the particular one, right? Let's get Isaiah 34 real quick. Isaiah 34 in verse 5. So it says, for my sword shall be bathed in heaven, and behold, it shall come down upon Idumea. And we know Idumea is a Latin way of saying Edom, right? The so-called Caucasians, right? Then it says, for my sword shall be bathed in heaven, and it shall come down upon Idumea, and upon the people of my curse, and my curse judgment. right? Because that's what the Most High God is doing. He's going to judge these people for his judgment. And it says, the sword of the Lord is filled with blood and made with fatness of the, and made fat with the fatness and blood with the lambs and the goats and with the fatness of the kidneys of the rams. For the Lord has a sacrifice in Basra, talking about them people, and a great slaughter in the land, and a great slaughter in the land of Idomia. So he's going to get with these people, right? And they're not going to escape judgment. They will never ever escape. They have a great punishment, right? That's why they're acting out the way they're acting out. That's why they're, more mass shootings is popping up, because these people is losing their mind, right? These people are already unhinged individuals anyway. So it doesn't take too much to send them off the edge. And what's that movie with what's that guy, Dustin? Is it Dustin Hoffman? What's that guy? When is Sean Penn or something, right? When is falling down or something, like, not falling down, but something where dude just had a total bad day and just went crazy, psychopathic maniac for that day. Forgot the name of the movie. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So that's what these people, they like that guy. This one mishap away from unaliving the whole block, right? And perhaps themselves. So it says, jump down to 8, and it says, for the day of the Lord's vengeance and a year of recompense for the controversy of Zion, right? So God is going to pay them back for what they have done to the land and His people, right? And they got a great judgment, right? And that's what's going on. And to tell us back over here, and the Lord thy God will make thee plenteous in the. Hold up, let's get this first. Hold up, before we go. Jeremiah 30:16. It says, therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thy adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. So that's the great plan for these people, for the atrocities that they committed against the Lord's people. It's telling us that therefore all they that devour thee, so all those that devoured the Israelites, destroyed the Israelites, took them out of their righteous place, the Most High God is telling us, shall be devoured, and all thy adversary, every one of them, not some of them, not, just those over there, but every one of them shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be spoiled. So the people that robbed and took from us, they're going to have to give it all back, right? And we're going to get it back plus interest. And all that prey upon thee will be given for prey, right? So just how they hunt us and look for ways to oppress us and subjugate us, they're going to have to go through those same things, that same stuff, right? It says, for I will restore the health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, said the Lord. And that's what He's going to do, because our wounds need to be healed as a people, right? There's no restitution. They're not talking about giving us no type of reparations, right? Even though no amount of money could repay the stuff that we have done and happened to us. But they're not talking about that. And it says, for I will restore the health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, said the Lord, because they call thee a outcast. And that's what they do. They call us an outcast. They call us all types of bywords and derogatory terms. And they treat us like we don't belong here, right? And it says, saying, this is Zion whom no man seek after. Like, these is those niggas over there. Like, don't deal with them people, man. They just a bunch of criminals, drug dealers, gang banging thieves, right? Forget about it, right? So, back over here. Hold up. Was that it? Hold up. I think I want Ezekiel 25, I think. So let's start at 13, right? Ezekiel 25 and 13, it says, Thus saith the Lord God. Well, let's start at 13. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, I will also stretch out my hand upon Edom, and I will cut off man and beast. Right? That's what he's going to do. He's going to cut off man and beast. Right? Total annihilation. Cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they shall, and from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. Right? So he's going to, in this coming war, they're not going to make it out. It's going to destroy these people. And it says, I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people, Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to my anger, according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, said Yahweh. Right? So God is going to put the spirit on his people to put in work on those people. Right? You know, and that's what you call justice. That's called letting his people get their lick back. Right? And he's going to do that because it says, I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people. He's going to use his people to destroy them. And we can read about that in Revelation, I believe 17 or 18, right? We can read about it. Then in other places. And it says, and they shall lay my anger, and shall do in Edom according to my anger. So, because some of us is not mad enough, you know. I know I'm not mad enough. You know, if I was, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. Some of us are not mad enough, right? And a lot of us is definitely not mad at all. Some of us not bothered at all. Some of us don't see no wrong that Master did. Oh, Master, this is so sweet. Master smelled like lemon juice, right? You know, everybody, you know, just crazy about it, right? That's why they said, according to my anger and my fury, they should know my vengeance, said the Lord. So, because our people are so docile and you know, we've been trapped in this cult called religion of Christianity, we think it's wrong to come against Master and say, oh, I hate Master. I wish Master don't wake up so quickly tomorrow. And like, in fact, I wish he don't wake up quickly at all. Like, I hope it's just very, very to the point his eyes don't open. Right? But you can't say stuff like that. Right? They're not gonna like you. Let's get Zechariah 12 and 8, right? Because again, our people, some of our people is not, they don't understand. So that's why God is gonna have to give you that jokes, that hey yo, that pep talk. Like, man, look, get your head in the game, right? Let's get Zechariah 12 and 8 real quick. Zechariah 12 and 8. And it say this. For in that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. So God is going to defend his people in that day when these people try to come up against his people. Because again, we already read earlier in Lamentation, no more will we go into captivity and nations come and take us into captivity. We're not going to get overthrown again. So that means God is going to defend us in that day. Right? because we're going to be righteous in that day. And it says, in that day the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he shall, and he that is feeble shall, hold on, it says, the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. So even the weakest of us, you know, is gonna, because God, once He put that spirit on us, because if you understand how mighty David was, you know, number one, he was the king, right? Then he had something called, he had his own little special army. They called the mighty man of David, right? You know what I'm saying? David was, you know, that dude. He was like, I like to like him to the Black Rambo, you know what I'm saying? John Wick, you know what I'm saying? He does things, he gets busy, right, by himself. But then he has 300 mighty men also that have special war capabilities that they're great at, right? But it says, in that day the Lord defends the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them shall be as David. So even the weakest of us, you know, if you got like a little bad hip, you know, been having arthritis in your back all your life, but once God put that spirit on you, because they tell us He's gonna put His spirit, according to His anger, right? You're gonna have the spirit of David on you, right? A mighty man, a mighty warrior, right? And what happens? And it says, in the house of David shall be as God. And it's like in the rest of us, it's going to be as God, right? And it says, as the angels of the Lord before him. So we're going to have the power. We're going to be looking like God to these nations when we start putting foot to ass, belt to ass, whatever how you want to put it, right? Fist to mouth, fist to eye, whatever. Fist to jaw, whatever, right? Looking like God to him, right? And it says, in the house of David shall be as God of the angels of the Lord before him. Because the angels are mighty, strong warriors themselves. And we're going to have the power of the angels in that day. If you understand this book and how the angels get down, one angel killed 200,000 Assyrian soldiers by himself, right? So, very mighty, very powerful, right? So imagine in that day, the armies of the world is jaying down on you. It's you going against a whole platoon of people. You know, platoon is probably like 50 to something. I don't know. Maybe you army people out there. Well, you know, I know it's a lot. It's more than 20, more than 30. It's a platoon. And you're able to handle that by yourself, right? That's the power that we're going to have in that day. That's why we always say Hollywood stole from this book. You know, they created the X-Men and all these other little super characters. I mean, that's what we're reading about right here. Zechariah 12 and 8. God giving His people that power to do miraculous things, to bring salvation to the people, right? And so, let's, boom, 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 where we at? Back over here. And it say, and the Lord thy God will make thee plenteous in every work of thy hand. This is Deuteronomy 30 and 9. And the fruit of thy body, and all the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land for good. And the Lord will again rejoice over thee for good, as He rejoiced over thy fathers. Right? So He's going to bless us and give us, you know, glory and, you know, and bless us and prosperity, like we read, right? Then it says, if thou hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep His commandments and the statutes which is written in this book, if thou hearken unto the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul. So God is telling us to listen to everything He's telling us in this book of the law, because it's not a book of religion, right? It's not. You know, people confuse this book, because when they think about this book, they automatically associate it with Christianity. But this is not a book of religion. Our dear brother Joshua tells us this, Joshua 1 and 8. This book of the law That's what this is. It's the book of the law. It's our law and our history. There's no difference if America take their constitution and their history and put it all together in one book. That's what this is. This book of the law should not depart out of thy mouth, but thou should meditate therein therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Right. So that's what this is. The book of the law. Right. Of how the Israelites is to govern themselves in their land. Right. And it says, Deuteronomy 28, real quick. Deuteronomy 28 and 1. And it says, and it shall come to pass, if thou hearken diligently and listen to the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, the Lord thy God will set thee high above all nations. So he's going to make us the top hegemony of the nations, right? We're not going to be no longer at the bottom of society. He would make us the top, right? And it says, and all these blessings should overcome thee and overtake thee if thou hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Right? That's the key thing. We have to hearken. But you go to church, they tell you, well, don't listen to the laws of God. You know, the laws of God is done away with. But in our contractual agreement, he's telling us we have to listen and do what he tells us to do, so we can be blessed and be placed above all nations. That way we won't be second-class citizens in every land that we're scattered to. Right? That's what he's telling us. So, back over here. For this commandment which I command thee this day is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. So God is like, I'm not telling you stuff that is hard to do, that is secret sayings. You need to go buy another book and read that book to understand what I'm saying, or go to this type of school and learn from this guy for umpteenth years to understand what I'm saying. I'm not telling you anything hard. That's what he's telling us, right? But according to Christianity and other places, they tell you, oh, well, the laws of God is so unattainable, nobody can do it, you know, it's hard. But when you actually read the laws, they're very practical. And in fact, they're so practical, you know, America actually took a bunch of them and put them in their own penal code system. That's how practical they are, right? So you might want to read them and stop listening to a pastor telling you that nobody can keep the law, right? So it says, for this commandment which I command thee this day is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. 1 John 5 and 3. 1 John 5 and 3. And it's saying, okay, that's why I know. 1 John 5 and 3 says this. It says, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. They're not grievous, right? So when he's telling us over here, what it say? It says, for this commandment which I command thee this day is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. Meaning it's not hard for us to understand. He's not telling us some type of mystifying stuff that you have to really think deep, like, oh, I wonder what he really meant by that. And you have to, you know, no, it's nothing that he's telling us that's hard to understand. Because, again, Christ is telling us, John over here in 1 John 5 and 3, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous, meaning they're not hard to do, people. They're not this mystifying thing like, oh, you gotta, oh, nobody can do it, there's not none of that, right? So very practical. Just if we read them, you know, and we do it here, you know, we go every now and then, we read the laws, and we see how practical they are, right? So And you will see too. Let's go to Luke 17, I think, real quick. Hey, hold up, hold that. So then, but hold that. So back over here. So it says, it is not in heaven. So it says, so now it's not grievous. It says, so it says, for it is not in heaven that thou should say, who should go up for us in heaven. So meaning God said, I'm not telling you stuff that you have to go on a quest. You know, you watch those adventure movies where they get a little relic or something, or a little totem, and they gotta go around the whole world like Lord of the Rings and go search and do all that stuff. Nah, God said you ain't gotta do all that, right? It ain't like that, right? You ain't gotta go travel the distant galaxy. It says, it is not in heaven that thou should say, who should go up for us to heaven and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. So like I said, it's not some knowledge that you have to go on a far off intergalactic, final frontier quest to figure it out, right? And it says, neither is it beyond the sea that thou should say, who should go over the sea for us and bring it to us. So it's not anything that you have to go travel the seven seas for, and all that. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world in the seven seas. That's not what you should be doing, right? It's not that difficult to figure out. It's not that complicated. You ain't got to put together a whole expedition to try to understand this thing. It says, but the words is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth, in thy heart, and thou mayest do it, right? And it's very nigh, because what did Christ tell us over here? Luke 17, and let's start at 21, and it says, neither shall they say, lo here, or lo there. Behold, the kingdom of God is within you, right? It's within you, because he gave us the commandments, right? He told us the commandments. He told us how to do this whole shebang, right? So it's within you, right? But again, pastor tell us, hey, don't worry about all that stuff. You ain't gotta keep the commandments. No man can keep the commandments. Jesus is the only one that can do it. But that's not what the Bible say. Right? That's not what the book say at all. Because we just read it, and it say one more time. It says, neither should they say, lo here, or lo there. For behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Right? So again, God is telling us over here, for this commandment which I command thee this day is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. Right? So he's not telling us hard stuff. Right? These are stuff that were told to us from old. Right? And as we remember ourselves in our land of our captivity, like we read, the first verse we read, all this stuff will come into mind. And then, again, like it says over here, what is that? Boom, boom, boom. And it says, behold, the kingdom of God is within you, right? Because, again, right? So then, back over here. So it says, I have set before thee this day life and good, death and evil, right? And that's the thing we have, God gave us like the commandments for good and life, and we don't keep the commandments, then we get the death and the evil. So it says, I set before thee this day life and good and death and evil, and that I command thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply, and the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. But if thou heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but shall be drawn away and worship other gods to serve them, I denounce unto you this day that ye surely perish, right? And that's conditional, right? The contract is conditional in case you don't understand. So whenever we don't follow and take heed to the commandments, danger and destruction come amongst our people, right? 2 chapters prior, Deuteronomy 28, verse 15, all the way down to 68, it's a whole list of punishments that God said that he's going to use on us whenever we step out of line. So, in a sense, so I will denounce you this day that ye should surely perish, and that ye should not prolong your days upon the land. Rather thou possess over Jordan, preserve yourself over the land. Says, rather thou possess over Jordan to go possess it. I will call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I set before you life and death, blessings and curses. So God has given us a choice, saying, look, you can keep my ways, I'll be your God, and you be blessed, and you be like the greatest people ever, right? Or you cannot keep my ways, and then you can be cursed and be forever destroyed. And that's what have taken place to our people, because we have neglected our stewardship of being rulers of this planet, kings and princes and priests of this planet, to, be like everybody else, join the other nations, get involved in what they're doing because it looks cool. So we want to do it too. So he's telling us, but if thy heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but thou should draw away and worship other gods and serve them, I denounce unto you this day that ye surely perish. And that's what's been going on. Our people have been dying for no apparent reason, all because we're caught up in various lifestyles other than what the Most High God tells us to be and do. There's consequences to these things. People don't understand. People think they can just do whatever they want and it's cool. But there's consequences to not doing what the Most High God say, whether you like it, believe it or not. Right? And it says, and he that shall and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land, rather thou possess over Jordan to go possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I set before you life and death. So like, look, I'm calling all the heavenly hosts to witness our agreement, because you gotta, when you're coming into agreements, you gotta have third parties to recognize it, right? To be witnesses, right? You go to a notary, the person notarize it, all that. So he's calling, what it says, I have called heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life. That's what we got to do. Choose life. We choose life by keeping the law, statutes, and commandments in the faith, right? That's how we choose life. Coming back to our nationality, our heritage, our culture, following this book, doing the things that God told his people to do, because he made us, a peculiar people. He promised to make us above all nations and a special people unto himself. So just do it, right? Because those people with the little curly stuff hanging from the side and, like to put the little cup coasters on top of their heads, they're not the people. But they're loosely following the tenets and principle of this book, and we see how prosperous they are just by keeping to some of the tenets and principles of this book. We know that who they are, but they're the devil the Bible speaks of. But we can see that. I mean, can we not see that? Right? Just, you know, so imagine the people that it is actually designed for start doing the work and keeping these laws. Imagine how great we will be, right? Something to think about. So it says, blessing and the curse, therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed should live, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life in the length of thy days. Because that's how we live. Because God is the one that keeps your heart pumping, keeps the air going in and out your nostrils, right? The blood flowing, all that. He's the one that decides to be like, all right, what time it is? Oh, shoot, dang. Oh, yeah, go ahead and cut that. I forgot old boy was still alive. He's the one that makes these decisions. So you might want to figure out what he wants you to do, right? Because that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou may cleave unto him, for he is thy life in the length of days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers. Right? Think about that. He is thy life in the length of days. Think about this commandment too. The commandment says, honor thy father and thy mother, right? So in that commandment it says, honor thy father and honor thy mother, and thy days shall be long. Now that's the only commandment that has that stipulation where it tells you if you keep this, your days will be long. The reason why I brought that up, because right here it just tells us that it says, he is thy life in the length of days. So this man controls the length of your days, right? He writes down on a little piece of paper of how long this person is going to be living for. Then, he might have an eraser, and he might erase it and be like, you know what, I'm going to change that number, right, to something else. You remember our dear brother, King Hezekiah, was going to die on a sick bed, but then God was like, because Hezekiah said a little prayer and all that stuff. You can read it yourself. Then God was like, you know what, Hezekiah, you is kind of right, though. I'm going to give you 15 more years on life. Matter of fact, 15 years, right? He did the reverse of what the judge do here in America. The judge look at you like, 15 years. God looked at Hezekiah and said, 15 years of life, right? Because he controls the life, right? So you might want to do what he wants you to do, right? So it says, that thou may love the Lord thy God, and may obey his voice, that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life and the length of days. He's the one that can lengthen days or shorten days. That thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord thy God sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them. Right? That's the whole thing, right? That's what God's that's what he wants, right? He want to be able to lengthen our days, right? We always talk about people that, live to be, talking about, I got a grandmother that lived to be 100 and something, or, something like that, right? We talk about those things. He's the one that lengthened our days to reach those ages, right? So, hopefully that was hopefully that was edifying. You know what I'm saying? We understand that we got a God that fight for us. He's just waiting for his people to come back. And as we're waking up and coming back, he's passing judgment on this place, as we can see. That is, that what he's doing as we follow through these prophecies. So, till next time, I'm going to say shalom, peace. We out.